Hello everyone, and welcome to Sunup. I'm Lyndall Stout. When it comes to climate change, cattle and methane are often part of the conversation. But just how much methane that's in the atmosphere actually comes from livestock? Today we're examining that question. Here's Sunup's Curtis Hare with our Extension beef cattle specialist, Dr. Dave Lalman.
Well, last time we talked with Dave Lalman, we were talking about hay efficiency in cattle. And Dave, you're actually monitoring methane emissions with this machine here.
We are. This is green feed is the name of the piece of equipment that we're using here, and it monitors methane emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, and oxygen consumption in cattle.
So exactly how does it work?
Well, it's got a little feed box there at the top, and you'll hear a beeper go off, and it drops a little bit of feed to bait the cow in, and they'll come in to consume that little bit of feed, and it's just enough to try to keep them in there for about 3 minutes. And then there's a sensor right near the pan where she's licking the feed up, and that sensor is collecting gas measurements or gas sample.
So Dave, we actually had you on I think about 1.5 years ago, and we were talking about misconceptions that there are with methane emissions and how cattle actually emit methane.
Yeah, so you hear occasionally about cow farts or flatulation. It's interesting because cattle do very little of that. 90 to 95% of gas eructation is from belching. Methane from fermentation of ruminant animals is just part of a cycle. So, they consume plants. The rumen is really good at converting those plants into a human edible, high quality human edible protein product, beef. But those plants utilize sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create that food for the ruminant animal. And then the rumen itself goes through the fermentation process, and that's where a little bit of methane is produced and belched back out into the atmosphere. So when they belch the methane into the atmosphere, the cycle is about the methane is in the atmosphere. Most of the things I've read indicate that it's in the atmosphere for a maximum of about 12 years. And then it gets oxidized, turned back into CO2, and the cycle starts over.
What's cattle's overall impact in regards to methane emissions?
That's a good question. The EPA has really good information on that, and if you boil it down, basically agriculture contributes about 10% of greenhouse gas contributions here in the United States. Of that 10%, enteric fermentation from ruminant animals is about 25 to 28%. So let's say 28% times 10% is 2.8% of the total contribution to greenhouse gas emissions come from ruminant animals.
But that's why you have, equipment like this and research like this to, limit that carbon footprint.
Yeah, so we, Sunup here just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about forage utilization efficiency in our study here to try to find cows that are really good at utilizing forage, or maybe not using very much forage, but still being very productive. And that's our goal. But we think our initial data says that there's quite a bit of variation in greenhouse gas emissions, methane in particular. And so we think there's opportunity maybe to not only find cattle that are efficient in terms of utilizing forage, maybe not consuming a whole lot to do their job, but also maybe not emitting a lot of methane.
All right, thanks, Dave. If you'd like some more information on methane and feed efficiency in cattle, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
It is a busy time of year with summer crop season quickly approaching. Today, Sunup's Ed Barron takes us behind the scenes at OSU's Soils Analytical Lab to see why it's such an important part of Oklahoma agriculture.
One step can show the difference between feast or famine.
Soil samples will tell you what my potential is if I don't fertilize and what my potential is if I do fertilize based upon the sufficiency. Basically, this is what I have, this is what I need. If I don't do anything, I will yield this much.
And with summer approaching, the Oklahoma State University Soil Lab is a busy place.
We do about 60 to 70,000 a year. Among that, 25,000 samples are soil samples. We're busy year-round. We have 2 peak seasons, like March for summer crops and July, August for winter crops.
Dr. Zhang oversees the operations of the Soil Lab. Together with his team, they provide crucial information to producers nationwide.
We tell the customer what's in their sample nutrient-wise, so nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, things like that. From that, they can tell how much fertilizer they need to add to grow their crops and to get a good yield.
And all this has a major benefit for producers' wallets.
If they do not test the soil, it's like we take medicine without see a doctor. So it's very important to find out what's needed and what's not. Otherwise, they may waste money or polluting the environment.
At the end of the day, a producer's land is an investment, and the Oklahoma State University Soil Lab helps them make sure that it lasts.
Different field needs different maintenance or management. If we do not take specific soil samples, we may over or under apply fertilizer, and that would harm the soils.
Soil sampling goes into a lot about longevity and sustainability of a system. So just the action of soil sampling makes your system more sustainable through the future and for generations.
I would encourage people to contact the county extension office to take advantage of our service. We provide service for soil, for water, for manure, and forage quality. So I think if they want to improve their management, this is a very simple thing to do. I think with all this service we provide, and it's easy to make a profitable farming operation.
In Payne County, I'm Ed Barron.
Dr. Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, is here now. Kim, let's kick off with what the market is offering for harvest-delivered commodities.
Well, I got to be a little careful with that. I had these numbers down there this morning, and then I checked the market a little later. Wheat was up 21 cents, so it's volatile right now. You look at wheat right now, you can forward contract for harvest delivery at about $6. That's a minus 15 underneath that July contract. Corn's at $4.95. That's also minus 15 under the corn December contract. Sorghum is $5.75. That's 65 cents over that corn December contract. Soybeans at $11.90. Sometimes it hits 12, but somewhere in that vicinity, a minus 70 under the November soybean contract. And canola is posted at $10.70.
When you think about wheat for that June-July time period, what do you expect?
Well, I'm going to go back to the olden days where we did an expected price, an optimistic price, and a pessimistic price. The expected is $6, what the market's offering right now. Optimistic is around $7 and pessimistic at 5 or below. So what you've got is about a 1 out of 5 chance of it being below $5 and a 1 out of 5 being above $7 and the other 60% right in the middle.
Lots of range there. What makes you think that the price could dip below $5 for that June-July period?
Well, if you look at past prices, you know, the average June-July price in 2020 was $4.22. In 19, it was $4.32. The 5-year average June-July price is $4.30, and the 10-year average is $5.38. All well under that $6. You look around the world, the crop looks good. Now, we've talked about the Russian crop. You go back 2 months, it was estimated to be less than 2.8 billion bushels. Now it's just less than 3 billion bushels. So a big increase there. Ukraine and the rest of the crops look relatively good now. You look at the world ending stocks, they're almost a near record ending stocks, and the world stocks to use ratio is right at average.
I'm an optimist. What makes you think that $7 for June, July may actually happen?
Well, if you look at the U.S. situation with all wheat ending stocks at 852 million bushels, last year it was over $1 billion. You look at hard red winter wheat ending stocks, 411 million bushels. The 5-year average, 528 million bushels. The stocks to use ratio is 54%, still relatively high, but well below that average 67% for hard red winter wheat. At all wheat, stocks to use ratio is 40% with a 50% average. So relatively good stocks to use ratio. Plus, Russia has $1.60 export tax on every bushel of wheat they're going to export.
What should producers then do about realistically pricing their wheat?
Well, it depends on how they can sleep. If, you go back a couple weeks, you could have forward contracted for $6.50. It's now at $6. It's been down to almost $5.50. If when it was at $5.50, after having the opportunity at $6.50, they couldn't sleep, they need to price some wheat. So it's what's going to let them sleep at night.
Okay, speaking of that, how comfortable are you with corn and soybean prices?
Relatively good. You look at corn, stocks are relatively tight. Of course, a lot of that depends on China and what China's going to do and what production is in South American countries. So right now, for wheat, I think there's more volatility than corn and beans, but corn and beans, there's still a lot of uncertainty in that market.
Okay, great talking with you, Kim. We'll see you next week.
Good morning, Oklahoma. Welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. A few weeks ago, we addressed breeding soundness exams and their importance on bulls prior to breeding season because of that brutal cold weather we had back in February. This morning, we're joined by Dr. Parker Henley, who's going to talk to us a little more about that. Parker, when we talk about BSEs, what exactly do we mean by that?
Yeah. Well, a breeding soundness exam is commonly referred to as a BSE, and it's not just an evaluation of the bull's sperm or semen. It's more than that. We actually evaluate their structure, their reproductive organs, as well as their composition and a body condition score, and then also the common thing of mortality, morphology, and motility of the sperm. And so it's a comprehensive review of the bull's breeding ability.
So Parker, as we look at doing that, going into breeding season, why do we say it's important to do it in advance of breeding season?
Absolutely. Well, a breeding soundness exam is only a bull's ability to cover cows on that specific day. However, it's requested that you should do that 6 to 8 weeks prior to the breeding season. So that way you have enough time as a cow-calf operator to replace that unfertile bull, a bull that doesn't pass the breeding soundness exam, with a fertile bull. And that sometimes requires some time to find a sale that's still marketing bulls and then purchase that bull and get him home.
And we like to do that in advance. What's the benefit if we've got to go purchase new bulls of getting them together for the breeding season?
If you're a large enough cow-calf operator where you have to run multiple sires in a pasture, it's important that you commingle those bulls prior to them turning out on cows, because there'll be a substantial amount of time where they'll fight and they will select a dominance order amongst those bulls. And so it's important to get them accustomed to each other so that they're ready to go out on cows. And as we know, it's the grass is greening up and turnout is just around the corner, and so it's never too early to start planning for turnout.
Well, Parker, we appreciate you joining us this morning. We'll actually have Parker back with us again next week. We're going to be talking about replacement heifers and keeping them on target to be calving ahead of our cows, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Cow-Calf Corner.
Last time we spoke to our livestock marketing specialist, Derrell Peel, fed cattle markets have been pretty flat, but there has been a slight increase. So Derrell, what's driving that increase?
Well, we expected, more seasonal strength through the first quarter in the fed cattle prices, and they were just stagnant for about 6 weeks. But they finally broke out of that, and they've actually moved up pretty dramatically in the last. We put about $10 on the fed cattle market in the past 2 weeks or so. And I think it's a combination of both supply and demand factors. On the supply side, we knew we had, lots of supplies. There were a lot of cattle kind of weighing on the market. Beef production was pretty high early in the year, and we've tightened that up a little bit going forward. On the demand side, we've also seen a nice run up in box beef prices in the last month, and so that has made it much easier, of course, in terms of the margins for these fed cattle prices to advance a little bit.
So what's driving that demand for box beef?
Box beef demand is really strong, honestly a little stronger probably than I expected. All protein markets are strong, but I think what we're really seeing here is a combination in terms of product markets. It's strong demand at the grocery store. It's the time of year we're starting to lay in meat, getting ready for grilling season. We're buying for Memorial Day here in April, and so we're seeing that, but we're also seeing some improvement on the food service side in terms of restaurant demand. And so if we look at some of the middle meats, the steak products, we're seeing the highest prices we've had in 12 to 18 months on some of those. And so just generally, I think it's a combination of both sides of the demand equation are getting better as we go forward.
So what about calf markets? How are those looking?
The calf markets have been very strong all spring, and they continue fairly strong. Now, seasonally, we expect them to sort of peak out here any time now. We might be pretty close to the seasonal peak, but at the moment, there's strong demand for the lightweight calves in particular from a summer grazing standpoint. Even the big feeder cattle prices, and they normally actually continue advancing on into the summer, and we're certainly seeing that right now. So everybody's kind of moving forward. All of the cattle markets and beef markets are kind of advancing similarly and more or less in a seasonal way.
So, that's a lot of good news, but, drought's kind of picking up in the state. What are some other things you're concerned about, that producers should be concerned about?
Well, I think you hit probably the biggest one, and that's the potential for drought. Certainly around the country, we've got lots of drought conditions. We're seeing advancing drought conditions in the northern plains in particular, and some regions that could have bigger cattle market implications going forward down in Texas. And in Oklahoma, we don't have a lot of drought, but conditions are getting drier. The threat is there. And again, at this time of the year, it's critical for producers to really measure sort of any forage production they get early in the year. It could stop, it could be halted by the drought, and so we really have to pay attention to what we've got and how we're going to make the best use of that if in fact we don't get near as much as we would normally expect to see.
Well, it's been like I've been saying for the past few weeks, let's just hope for rain.
That's right, exactly.
All right, thanks, Derrell. Dr. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Welcome to the Mesonet Weather Report. I'm Wes Lee. Last week, I showed a map showing how we had been experiencing above average temperatures. This week, as things often do in Oklahoma, have changed dramatically. Temperatures took a nosedive and are now mostly below normal for this time of year. This map is from Wednesday morning showing just how cold the conditions were. It shows that we even had some freezing temperatures in the Panhandle and far northwest. The highs on Wednesday struggled to get into the 60s as a cool front arrived and clouds were present almost statewide. The normal highs for this time of year are about 75 degrees statewide. Expect this cooler than normal conditions to last for some time to come. This map is the forecasted high temperatures for Saturday. It shows temperatures mostly in the 50s or low 60s, very cool for the third week of April. The National Weather Center forecast for the next week continues this cool trend. The dark blue centered over the map shows that a strong possibility exists for temperatures to remain below normal. The map for 2 weeks out still shows that temperatures will likely remain below average, but the probabilities are not as high. It seems like roller coaster temperatures are the new normal for Oklahoma, 1 month way above and the next way below normal. Now here's Gary with a look at some rainfall numbers for the state.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, this month has turned into more March than April over the last week or so, and it looks like it's going to stay that way for a while, as Wes showed. Now, that does help us when it comes to keeping drought at bay a little bit. We don't get the extreme heat, but we don't want to see any late freezes either. We do have some movement on the drought monitor. Let's get right to that new map and see where we're at. We're really the same basic map we've seen for the last couple of weeks. We did see a little bit of an increase in the moderate to severe drought down across south central and southeastern Oklahoma, and also a little bit of expansion of that moderate drought up into central Oklahoma. And then we have that wider area covered by abnormally dry conditions. Maybe we'll see some movement on that with the newer rains as we get into next week's map. We can see the basis for that map in the last 30 days rainfall on the Mesonet map. We do see that lack of rainfall from southwestern up through central Oklahoma where that drought has intensified. Also a little bit of a weaker area of rainfall down across south central Oklahoma over into southeastern Oklahoma. We can see that a bit easier when we go to the percent of normal rainfall map for the last 30 days. That southwestern through central Oklahoma area of less than 40% of normal rainfall for the most part. And then of course the panhandle remains dry, less than 50 to 40% of normal rainfall for much of the western half. Well, the drought outlook from the Climate Prediction Center through July 31st shows some bad news. It doesn't have to be this way, of course, if we do get some good rains, but what they're seeing right now shows drought development to be likely across southern into central Oklahoma, so let's hope that that map doesn't come to fruition. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Finally, today, a tip of the hat to OSU's president and first cowgirl for all that they've done over the years for the university and for OSU agriculture. After 13 transformational years at the helm, Oklahoma State University President Burns Hargis is retiring this summer. Accolades abound, along with a fair share of reminiscing about the people he and the First Lady have met, the places they've been, and all that they've learned about wheat, especially the OSU variety named Baker's Ann.
The intricate process of research is phenomenal. I was so very honored to know that so much work went into something that had my name on it. I mean, across the board. And the people involved and the joy people have in making new varieties and just the education itself was exhilarating.
It all started with a key meeting between President Hargis and OSU wheat geneticist Dr. Brett Carver.
He took me to the testing field at Lahoma and basically described it as this is like a school. These are first graders over here. These are the middle school. Learning about all that was great. And then when he asked if it was okay if he could name a wheat variety after Ann Hargis, the first cowgirl, of course my first reaction was, why not me? But anyway, I said, of course, that'd be great. And so Baker's Ann came, and Ann and I got to go to the Sheba Farms up by Ponca City and see a whole field of Baker's Ann wheat. And that was just a wonderful experience.
There might have been a little jealousy. I'm not saying there was, but I think President Hargis is still wondering, what do I have to do to get something named after me around here?
Also of note, the historic donations Hargis helped steward during his presidency. Agriculture certainly benefits, namely the $50 million gift from the Ferguson Family Foundation to build a new teaching, research, and extension facility.
Their generosity is just overwhelming. For them to, after all they've done over the years, to make a $50 million pledge for a new state-of-the-art agriculture facility is just wonderful. I mean, it's really one of the best gifts we've had, and it's going to be a gift that just keeps on giving.
President Hargis's efforts to elevate OSU and to bring people back to OSU, it certainly had an effect on the Fergusons. And of course, that's been to our great fortune in the way that they're investing in our college and in our programs.
Oklahoma Secretary of Agriculture and OSU alumna Blaine Arthur says the Hargis's impact goes far beyond campus.
I think where we see that across the state of Oklahoma is we're giving these students the opportunity for success, ways to really accelerate in the ag world, and then they're staying here in the state and bringing those talents to the state of Oklahoma, but really to the ag industry. So incredibly appreciative of the president and the first Cowgirl and everything they've done, but really the support for the Ag College has been tremendous.
A commitment designed to set up the next generation for continued success.
We're certainly going to miss them, and that legacy will be seen there on campus for a long, long time, but really in the state of Oklahoma. So we wish them all the best.
It's not just about the bottom line, it's about the culture of the organization. It's about the presence that it has in the state, the reputation that it has in the state, and they've really cemented that.
They've also cemented the university's values and its character, much of it rooted in agriculture.
The greatest families are Oklahoma farmers and ranchers. And I think that's one of the privileges that Burns and I have had being on this campus, is getting to know that side of our state.
And people can feel it, and I wish I could bottle it. But I really think our heritage from agriculture still is a deep part of our culture, and everybody can benefit from it.
As we leave today, we want to say a special thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Hargis for talking with us today, and of course, extend our congratulations. It truly has been great working with you over the years. And that'll do it for us. I'm Lyndall Stout. We'll see you next time at Sunup.